So hello, my BW Nice ladies. I have our speaker of the month of November, Nichola Gutgold, with me today. Nichola, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Shelby. Great to be here.
I am so glad. So Nichola, as you and I had spoken, we try to give the women a little bit of a teaser of what you're going to be doing and then encourage them to come and learn more. So let me just clarify who you are. You were our Woman of the Year for this year's Red Shoe event. And one of the reasons why you were chosen for that, besides being a professor at Penn State Lehigh Valley University and the Lehigh campus, you are an internationally recognized author that talks about women in non-traditional roles. And we as women, are looking to build ourselves and to break through that glass ceiling and all that kind of stuff. So let me ask you, why do you write about women trailblazers?
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction and also for a wonderful, provocative question. It's a good question. So about 25 years ago, I noticed when I was doing some research that many of the women who were the spouses of candidates running for president were qualified themselves to be the president. And so a question I had in my mind is, why aren't they running? And the two women in particular that stood out in my mind, although there have been others, include Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Dole. And, the year was 1996, and Bob Dole was the Republican nominee for president, and his wife, Elizabeth, very energetically, charismatically, and compellingly campaigned for him. And I remember not really knowing that much about her and starting to do a little research to uncover who this woman was who grabbed my attention, because at the time I had been teaching public speaking about 10 years. And I was always looking for examples I could show my students of remarkable speakers. And I felt like Elizabeth Dole was that. She was certainly a remarkable, compelling speaker, because if you've ever seen political convention speaking, it's usually pretty boring. It's usually a speaker at the podium, and I'll do a little imitation of what my impression of so many political speakers are. They have a manuscript in front of them. I'll use my book, and they'll say, "Hello, Detroit," or wherever the convention's from. "My name is Nichola Gutgold, and my husband is running for president of the United States." It's usually just pretty terrible,
Right.
like I would give them a C in class because the delivery is stiff. It doesn't seem authentic. But in contrast to that, Elizabeth Dole not only was smooth, but she waltzed around the audience without even a microphone. Well, she actually had one in her hand. She was wearing a lavalier mic, but it failed. So she did take a mic without notes, is what I should say, speaking about her husband. And so I come to find out that she's a Harvard Law School graduate, that she had served in the Nixon administration, the Ford administration. She was Secretary of Transportation in the Ronald Reagan administration, the very first woman to be in the cabinet at the time. And just a light bulb went off. It was also at the time when Hillary Clinton, married to Bill Clinton, First Lady of the United States, was getting a lot of flack for being too much, as the teenagers like to say. Like she was just too much. She was heading up healthcare. She had a lot of opinions, and everyone had an opinion about her, and it wasn't good. And I was thinking, what's all this hatred for powerful women? Where is it coming from? A word we use a lot now is misogyny, but it set me on a research path where I started asking, who are women who have done things that other women haven't done and did so bravely? And I found a lot of examples, and I went back to 1964 and I wrote about Margaret Chase Smith, a Republican senator, the only woman in the Senate at the time who ran for president of the United States. And then I found Shirley Chisholm, a very compelling figure who was a congresswoman from New York who made a bid for the presidency, not because she thought she could actually win the presidency, but because she wanted to show that she was over 35 years old. She was born in the United States. She checked those boxes. And she was not only a woman, she was a woman of color. And she said, literally, when she walked into a room to say, "I'm Shirley Chisholm and I'm running for president," people thought she was not just out out there, they thought she was crazy. They thought she had mental health issues to think that she could actually be a candidate for president. So that year was 1972. And we've come a distance since then. So my latest book takes us to the 2020 election. And I don't know if you remember this, but we had more people running for president of the United States, both men and women, than we ever did in the history of United States politics. We had 30 people running for president. I ran into Charlie Dent, a former congressman, at a party, and I said, Charlie, I'd love a quote for my new book. And he said to me, he goes, oh, he said, I go to the congressional gym, and every single day I run into someone running for president. And I thought, oh, we've got a quote. And in fact, I thought, well, there must be a lot, but not only were there a lot, there were more than ever. And there were more women than ever. There were 6 women who ran for president in 2020. So my new book is called Electing Madam Vice President: When Women Run, Women Win. And it really makes the case. It's a biographical book about the 6 women who ran. And it makes the case that when we get to a critical mass, and some people say that's 20%. Well, I was never a math whiz, but if there were 30 people, 3 times 2 is 6, that's a critical mass. We had a critical mass of women running for president in 2020, and we elected a woman vice president. It's been a long, somewhat depressing journey, to be quite honest. I'm very optimistic personally, but if you look at the history of women running for office, you have to get just a little bit tired of hearing people like me tell this story, because I've been doing it now 20 years, talking about women running for president. We still haven't elected her. So, that question, that burning question, when will America elect a woman president, is still there. And so that's my motivation, that we'll forget about these women who made bids. They deserve to be remembered. And if they're only remembered in my book, I'm happy, because I feel like I've made my contribution to make sure that their important contribution to politics in the United States is not forgotten.
And Nichola, you haven't just written this one book. You have multiple books that you've written and gone across many different fields, not just politics. We talked about broadcasting and so forth. So what have you learned from the biographies that you've written? What have you learned?
I have learned that whatever happens on the path for these women, that it's worth recording. I'll give you an example. So back in, I think it was 2008, I wrote a book called Seen and Heard: The Women of Television News. And just like this new book, I took each chapter and made it, I wrote about a woman who I felt made a significant contribution to television news. Women like Katie Couric, Elizabeth Vargas, Connie Chung, Diane Sawyer. And I looked at, well, what kind of education did they have? What kind of career highs and lows did they have? What kind of personality and tenacity did it take for them to be successful? And at that time, there weren't as many women in prominent roles in television. They were usually relegated to that morning perky role, like Katie Couric. And I'm reading her new biography now, and it's reminding me of such important history that has happened for women in broadcasting since the publication of that book more than 10 years ago. But it's been a tough path for women, and they're often forgotten about. We think about Walter Cronkite as, that the big booming voice that is America's father, grandfather. But we often forget about women who've trailblazed, and maybe their careers haven't ended up exactly as spectacularly as for example, Katie Couric's has, but they're still very important to remember and to give a voice to. Or someone like Barbara Walters, who arguably is probably the most famous woman who ever worked in broadcasting. And so, I think that the stories are worth telling. That's one of my takeaways, that I think that, I was very, very moved. Sometimes when you're an author, you write a book and you put it out into the ether and you don't even know who's reading it. You might see a few reviews on Amazon, but you don't really know. And I guess about a year or so ago, a coworker of mine said, I want you to go onto this website. And in fact, Katie Couric had mentored a young journalist who had read my book. And so she featured it on her
Wow.
website. And that for me meant so much, because I felt like you never know who you're going to impact. And I do think the stories are very inspirational. And I love biographies and I love inspiration. So that's what I try to write about. I try to give the reader inspiration based on the paths of other people. And so my takeaway is that there's inspiration and a lesson to learn from almost everybody's story.
So ladies, if you're not inspired yet to register, if you haven't registered, oh my goodness, register now, because seriously, you are just such a joy to listen to. And I'm going to ask you one last thing, Nichola, just in case somebody's on the fence and like, oh, I don't know if I can get childcare, or I don't know if I can do this, that, or the other. Do you have any little teaser you'd like to share with us about for Tuesday that will just make them get on and register right now?
Yes, I do. Shelby, thank you for asking. And the teaser is, come on, ladies, register for this. I will love to show up and see a lot of wonderful faces. I love being out. It's so good to be out again after this long period of being inside as an extrovert. I really need these moments where I'm out. So my teaser is that sometimes we look at a biography and we might think that it's not a success, that terrible things have happened, or that well, we haven't even elected a woman president. So why are you writing about Marianne Williamson's bid for president? Do you even remember Marianne Williamson is a question I have for my listeners right now. And I would say that even a story that sounds like it didn't turn out well, like a person didn't win an election, I have found tremendous success, inspiration, and progress in those stories. So when I teach public speaking, I tell students, when you speak in public, you have short-term goals and you have long-term goals. And I look at the bids of women for the presidency the same way. Their short-term goal was that they would win, that they would become the president. But the long-term goal of their race, and we can see this with Vice President Harris, isn't that they win, but that they'll be remembered for a future bid or for another significant position. And I'm sure Peter Buttigieg would tell you that now he's Secretary of Transportation because he ran for president, or Andrew Yang, who made 2 bids, one for president, one for mayor of New York, will tell you, keep running because it will be an opportunity for the future. So Elizabeth Dole, my original muse, the woman that I saw who I thought was a tremendous speaker, she never became president of the United States, but even now she has a very meaningful life. Well into her 80s, she has a foundation that provides support for caregivers of military families. And I would say these platforms, running for president, helped her to continue her voice in the public sphere. So that's my teaser, that maybe each woman who's coming on Tuesday might think that what she's engaging in is not worth it or is not going to end up in success. And I would say it's going to lead to something that is going to be more meaningful for your life.
That is absolutely the truth, Nichola. I can't wait to hear you speak on Tuesday. I am really excited. And ladies, I would love for us to just fill up that room, and let's just get on and register now. Nichola, thank you so much for having a conversation with me today. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
I'm very excited about it. Thank you, Shelby. Have a wonderful weekend. See you
All
Tuesday.
right, guys, come on, sign up.
Sounds good. Thank you.